Hello, this is Jennings.
And this is Kevin Woodward, and our presentation is on how gun laws affect businesses in the gun industry.
Since 1934, the U.S. federal government has enacted gun laws on several occasions, which were designed to make changes to the limits or controls on gun ownership. Many of these laws were passed in reaction to some problem or event that has occurred. Examples include the rise of gangsters during Prohibition, who were heavily armed and violent, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, who was killed by a mail-order gun, or by the attempted assassination of President Reagan, which led to the passage of the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act. Our theory focuses that this presentation focuses on is the legal issue of gun control and what kind of impact this issue has had on the financial health of the gun industry in recent years. The gun control issue has its roots in the Second Amendment of the Constitution, which established the right of people to bear and keep their arms. The heart of the control issue is the debate between who believe the right to bear arms and who believes that the right to bear arms needs to have limits and controls. Some of the legislation that has been passed up until 1994 include the National Firearms Act, the Federal Firearms Act, the Gun Control Act, and many more. In recent years, one of the main gun control debates has been the numerous gun-related tragedies that have increasingly made national news. Some of these include the Columbine shooting in 1999, the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007, and in recent years, the Midnight Massacre in 2012, which left 12 dead and 58 injured. Other headlines related to gun control include, does gun control affect the U.S. economy? New business laws which affect Harvard small businesses, and others. As a result of these tragedies, various gun control laws have been proposed over the past several years. However, people and organizations who oppose gun control have been very effective in exercising their political influence, and none of these recently proposed ideas were ever successfully enacted into law. Some of those include the high-capacity ammunition magazine ban, which occurred in 2013. Another one in 2013 was the assault weapons ban.
These recent legislation proposals have been mirrored in both the House and the Senate, as we can see with the large capacity ammo feeding devices, which would prohibit any ammunition feeding devices more than 10 rounds, and the assault weapons ban, which would prohibit any military-style rifles and many common ones such as the AR-15 and the AK-47. Recent cases have had many controversial issues come up with the gun laws, such as city bans. One of the recent ones is McDonald versus City of Chicago in Illinois, which came up in 2010. Chicago had a citywide ban which prohibited the possession of handguns inside city limits by requiring the registration of any handguns within the limits. However, it then goes on to prohibit the registration of most handguns by citizens. It was upheld in the 7th Circuit District Court under the precedent set by Quilty versus Morton Grove, but there have been other cases such as District of Columbia versus Heller in 2008, which disbanded the ban on guns in Washington, D.C. The ban was overturned in D.C. because it was found that the direct banishment of handguns in the city was unconstitutional according to the Second Amendment. Other gun-free zones in America are such as schools, government buildings, military bases, and many private and corporate businesses or organizations have also opted to make their spaces gun-free in order to help citizen safety. The scholarly analysis piece of our presentation consists of only our own analysis of this topic because it is so recent. There have not been any scholarly inputs on this topic. So in our scholarly analysis piece, in that place, we're going to look at the financials of Colt, Ruger, and Smith & Wesson and see how they have done over the years when these gun laws have been enacted. We're going to look at their net sales, their net income, their profit margin, which is the amount of every dollar earned that is pure profit after all expenses are taken into account, their cash debt coverage, which is the percentage of total debts the company can pay off with its cash on hand without liquidating assets essential to retaining current productivity, and their debt to asset ratio, the amount of every dollar of asset that is financed by debts. This is Colt's. Here we can see Ruger's, their net sales, net income, the profit margin, cash debt coverage, and debt to asset ratio. And Smith & Wesson's financials. Here we have the industry overview where I've compiled all these factors and pitted them against each other in charts. We can see in 2012 to 2013, while these enactments were in talks, all these legislative things were in talks, we see a big gun rise, but in 2013 to 2014 there's a fall. This is because these recent threats of legislative bans and restrictions concerning firearms have both helped and hurt the gun industry. We attribute these shifts in the market to the psychological effects they have had on both the consumers and producers of the gun industry. The threat of stricter gun control and regulations short-term helped the industry because consumers were afraid that the products they sought to buy would no longer be legal if these laws were passed. Increase in sales of all these products that may be illegal in the near future. This created a market bubble which led all these companies to increase their sales and production in 2012, which increased their net income, profit margin, and net sales. However, in 2013, when these laws were not passed, the bubble popped, leaving products overpriced and a surplus of products because consumers were no longer scared that they weren't going to be able to buy them in the future, which leads to a downfall in everything in 2013 to 14. However, these gun manufacturers are still in business, just not doing as well as they were in 2013. Manufacturers predicted sales much higher than what actually occurred in 2013, forcing them to cut back production and take losses on surplus products. This created a pessimistic outlook for the industry, which urged them to cut back production and decrease prices, putting them in a worse financial position as we see in 2014. We cannot get the data for 2015 yet because the financials have not yet been reported. In conclusion, the analysis we have produced explains how recent gun legislation and financial standing of businesses in the gun industry and related topics. We have seen how the talks of new gun restrictions have affected the sales of gun-related products, which is the backbone of the industry. And this concludes our presentation.